The message arrived on a Tuesday. Admiral James Harrison stood at the window of the United Earth Defense Command, watching ships dock at the orbital station. The holographic display behind him showed what everyone had feared since first contact: the Viridian Empire's massive fleet, holding position just beyond Mars' orbit. "They're not even trying to hide their strength," Lieutenant Rivera said, scrolling through the sensor data. 17,000 ships, each one carrying enough firepower to level a continent. Harrison didn't turn from the window. After 30 years in service, he'd learned that sometimes the most important thing a leader could do was project calm. And yet they're asking for a single combat trial instead of simply attacking. Interesting. The Viridian ambassador's hologram flickered to life in the center of the room, its crystalline skin-refracting light in complex patterns. "We offer humanity the same choice we have offered 15 other species," it said, voice resonating at frequencies that made the windows hum. "Send your finest warrior to face our champion. Victory means independence. Defeat means integration into the Empire." Integration, Harrison muttered. That's a polite word for subjugation. The data flowing across his neural implant told the story clearly enough. Every species that had faced the Viridians' trial had lost. Everyone had been integrated, their populations scattered across the Empire as a labor force, their cultures preserved only in museums. "Sir," Rivera said, "Commander Diana Wright is here." Harrison finally turned from the window. Diana Wright stood at attention, her dark skin somehow making the stark white of her uniform seem even brighter. At 42, she was past what most considered a warrior's prime, but Harrison knew better. 20 years in special operations had honed her into something beyond what most humans could comprehend. "Commander," Harrison said, "what do you know about the Viridian combat trials?" "Everything in our databases, sir. They're ritualistic, one-on-one combat between champions. The Viridians consider it more efficient than full-scale war." She paused. "They've never lost." "Because they're engineered for combat," Rivera interjected. "Their entire species has been modified over thousands of years. Enhanced strength, speed, reflexes, multiple redundant organs. They're living weapons." Diana's expression didn't change. "Every weapon has a weakness, Lieutenant." Harrison smiled inwardly. This was why he called her. Not just her combat skills, but her mind. Her ability to see patterns others missed. "The trial is in 3 months," Harrison said. "If you accept, you'll have access to everything we know about Viridian biology, combat techniques, and culture. You'll also have to undergo some modifications. Experimental tech, sir. The best our scientists can provide. Still won't match Viridian capabilities, but it might help level the field." Diana was quiet for a moment, studying the holographic display of the Viridian fleet. "Do we have a choice?" "There's always a choice, Commander. We could fight them conventionally, lose billions of lives, maybe win, maybe not. Or we could surrender without a fight, become another conquered species in their collection. Or we could try something new," Diana said. "Something they haven't seen before." Harrison nodded. "Exactly. You've studied their previous trials." "Yes, sir. Every champion they've faced tried to match their strength, their speed. Tried to beat them at their own game." A slight smile crossed her face. "That was their mistake. You have a different approach in mind." "The beginning of one, sir. The Viridians are perfect warriors because they've eliminated what they consider weaknesses. But sometimes, what looks like a weakness can be a strength." Harrison felt hope for the first time since the Viridian fleet appeared. "Elaborate." "They've engineered out pain, fear, doubt, made themselves into perfect logical machines. But that means they can't adapt, can't improvise. They can only optimize what they already know. And humans, we're messy, sir. We feel fear and use it. We doubt, so we question. We fail, so we learn. We're not perfect, and that's our advantage." Harrison studied her for a long moment. "You understand what you're volunteering for. If you lose," Humanity becomes another exhibit in their museum of conquered species. Yes, sir, I understand. And you still want to do this? Diana straightened. Sir, they think they've perfected combat by removing humanity from the equation. I intend to show them exactly how wrong they are. Harrison nodded slowly. Very well, Commander. Report to Research Division tomorrow morning. And Diana, good hunting. As she left, Harrison turned back to the window, watching Earth's defense fleet conduct maneuvers against the backdrop of stars. Soon, humanity's fate would rest on one woman's shoulders. But for the first time, he wondered if perhaps the Viridians had finally bitten off more than they could chew. They'd spent millennia removing what they saw as weaknesses, becoming something beyond human. But in doing so, they'd forgotten something crucial. Those very weaknesses had driven humanity to its greatest achievements. Pain taught endurance. Fear taught courage. Doubt taught wisdom. The Viridians were about to learn that perfection wasn't everything they thought it was. The research facility, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, hummed with activity. Diana Wright stood in the center of the combat simulation chamber, her newly augmented nervous system crackling with artificial energy. Holographic Viridian warriors materialized around her, their crystalline forms catching the light. Again, she said, wiping blood from her lip. Dr. Isabella Martinez watched from the control room, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. Commander, your cortisol levels are dangerously high. We should rest. They won't give me rest in the real fight. Diana's enhanced vision tracked the hologram's movements, noting patterns that would have been invisible to normal human perception. Run combat sequence Theta 7. The holograms attacked, moving with the impossible speed and precision that had made the Viridians legendary. But Diana had been studying them for 6 weeks now, and she was starting to see something nobody else had noticed. They were too perfect. Each movement followed optimal trajectories calculated over millennia of combat evolution. Every strike aimed for maximum efficiency. There was no wasted motion, no hesitation, no variation. And that made them predictable. Diana let her conscious mind fall away, allowing the combat implants to merge with her instincts. She didn't try to match their speed or strength. Instead, she moved in ways their calculations couldn't predict. Inefficient, the logical ways that no perfectly optimized warrior would consider. She dropped when she should have dodged, attacked when she should have defended, deliberately left openings that tempted them into predictable responses. 3 minutes later, all 5 holographic warriors lay defeated. Impressive, a voice said from the observation deck. Diana looked up to see Ambassador Cora, the only Viridian who had ever questioned their empire's methods. Her crystalline form shifted colors with her emotions, currently showing swirls of deep blue curiosity. Ambassador, Diana straightened, ignoring her screaming muscles. I didn't expect you. Few expect what they should, Commander Wright. Cora descended to the chamber floor, her movements displaying the same precise efficiency as all her kind. You fight, strangely. Is that a compliment or a criticism? An observation. Our combat algorithms show your movements are 37% less efficient than optimal patterns. Yet you succeed. Diana smiled. Perhaps your algorithms need updating. Perhaps. Cora's colors shifted to a thoughtful green. You know, in all our conquests, we've never encountered a species quite like humans. The others either surrendered immediately or tried to match our strength. You adapt. It's what we do best. Indeed. Did you know that some among our leadership opposed offering humanity the combat trial? They argued you were too dangerous, too unpredictable, that you should simply be eliminated. Diana's augmented senses detected the subtle changes in Cora's crystalline structure, minute vibrations that indicated emotional stress. Why are you telling me this? Because, Commander Wright, I believe they were right. Not about elimination, but about humanity's unpredictability. It is your greatest strength, though my people see it as a weakness. Dr. Martinez's voice came through Diana's neural link. Commander, you should see this data we're collecting. The ambassador's molecular structure is showing patterns we've never observed before. Diana studied Cora more carefully. You're different from the others, aren't you? The ambassador's colors swirled with complicated patterns. We Viridians believe we achieved perfection centuries ago. Any deviation is considered a flaw. But lately, I have wondered, what if perfection itself is a flaw? Evolution requires imperfection, Diana said. Room to grow, to change. Yes, and that is why this combat trial is more important than you know. It's not just about Earth's independence. It's about the future of both our species. Warning signals flashed across Diana's neural interface. Multiple Viridian ships were moving into orbit, far more than the diplomatic contingent. They're watching us, Cora said quietly. Always watching. Commander Wright, when you face our champion, remember, true strength lies not in perfection, but in the capacity for change. After Cora left, Diana spent hours analyzing their conversation. The combat implants allowed her to replay every moment, studying subtle details her natural senses would have missed. Dr. Martinez, she said finally, I need you to modify the combat simulations. Stop trying to make them perfect replications of Viridian techniques. Instead, introduce random variations, inefficiencies, flaws. That goes against everything we know about their combat style. Exactly. Something's changing among the Viridians. And I think Ambassador Cora just gave us the key to victory. Diana rolled her shoulders, feeling the advanced tech meshing with her muscles. They'd spent so long pursuing perfection, they'd forgotten how to handle imperfection. And you think that's their weakness? No, Diana smiled, dropping into a combat stance as new holograms materialized. I think it's their future. They just don't know it yet. As she moved through the modified combat sequences, Diana realized something profound. The Viridians had engineered themselves into an evolutionary dead end. By eliminating all imperfection, they'd also eliminated their ability to grow, to adapt, to evolve. But humans were messy, flawed, perpetually dissatisfied, always changing, always adapting, always finding new ways to overcome impossible odds. And in 2 weeks, she would show the Viridian Empire exactly what that meant. The Viridian combat arena hung in Earth's orbit like a massive crystalline snowflake. Diana stood in the preparation chamber, watching Earth rotate below through a transparent floor. The combat implants hummed beneath her skin, processing vast amounts of tactical data, while her very human heart thundered in her chest. The modifications are holding steady. Dr. Martinez's voice came through her neural link. But Diana, we've detected something strange about the arena's structure. Define strange. It's not just a venue. The entire structure is one massive quantum computing system. Every surface, every crystal, it's all processing something. Before Diana could respond, the chamber door crystallized into transparency, revealing her opponent. The Viridian champion, Vertex, stood nearly 8 feet tall, his crystalline form shifting through patterns of deep red and gold. Unlike Ambassador Cora's fluid color changes, his were rigid, mathematical. Human, his voice resonated at frequencies that made Diana's combat implants buzz. I have studied all 17 of my predecessors' victories. Your species' attempt at technological enhancement is admirable, but ultimately futile. Diana smiled, remembering Cora's words about imperfection. Funny thing about humans, we don't always learn from victory. Sometimes, our greatest lessons come from failure. Vertex's colors shifted to a dismissive blue, a philosophical rationalization for weakness. Come, let us complete this ritual so your species can begin its proper integration into the Empire. The arena's central chamber was a perfect sphere, its crystalline surfaces refracting light in dazzling patterns. As Diana stepped onto the combat platform, her enhanced senses detected subtle vibrations throughout the structure. The whole arena was singing, resonating with frequencies just beyond human hearing. Dr. Martinez, she sub-vocalized, are you getting this? Yes. The quantum processing just increased exponentially. Whatever this arena is designed for, it's not just combat. The match began without ceremony. Vertex moved with the perfect efficiency Diana had studied for months. Each strike and counter-strike following optimal patterns developed over millennia. But now, seeing him in person, she noticed something her simulations had missed. He was beautiful, and he was terrified. Not of her. No, this was a deeper fear, something fundamental to his very nature. As their combat dance continued, Diana began to understand. The perfection of his movements wasn't just training or engineering. It was desperation. "You're afraid of chaos, aren't you?" she said, ducking under a strike that would have shattered concrete. "Afraid of anything you can't predict, can't control." Vertex's colors rippled with irritation. "Your psychological tactics are as inefficient as your combat style." But Diana pressed on, both physically and verbally. "That's what this arena really is, isn't it? Not just a combat venue. It's a prediction engine. You're trying to calculate every possible outcome." Her words hit home. Vertex's attacks became fractionally less perfect, his movements showing microscopic hesitations that her combat implants eagerly cataloged. "The Empire brings order," he said. "We eliminate chaos, uncertainty, failure. And that's exactly why you've stopped evolving." Diana moved in patterns that defied his calculations, combining techniques in ways that shouldn't work but did. "You're so afraid of failure that you've forgotten its value." The arena's crystalline surfaces pulsed with increasing intensity. Diana's neural interface was flooding with data, patterns she couldn't consciously process, but that her enhanced instincts understood. "The trial," she said, revelation striking harder than any physical blow. "It's not about combat at all, is it? It's about evolution. You're not looking for subjects to rule. You're looking for species that can teach you how to change." Vertex's perfect facade cracked. Literally. Tiny fissures appeared in his crystalline surface, refracting light in chaotic, beautiful patterns. "You understand nothing," he said, but his voice held a new frequency. Doubt. "I understand that perfection is a dead end." Diana moved closer, her strikes now aimed not to damage, but to create new patterns of light and sound in his crystalline form. Life isn't about achieving perfection. It's about the endless journey of improvement, the beauty of imperfection, the necessity of failure. The arena's quantum systems were reaching some kind of crescendo. The very air seemed to crystallize around them as billions of calculations per second tried to predict an outcome that defied prediction. "That's why Ambassador Cora is different," Diana continued. "She started to change, to evolve. And it terrifies the Empire because they can't control it, can't predict where it will lead." Vertex's attacks had lost their perfect precision, becoming something new, something that combined Viridian strength with almost human unpredictability. If what you say is true, then the Empire has been fighting its own evolution for centuries." Diana moved in perfect synchronization with him now, their combat becoming less a battle and more a dance of possibility. "But you can't fight entropy forever. Change is the only constant in the universe." The arena's crystalline surfaces began to resonate with their movement, creating patterns that rippled through its quantum structure. Diana's combat implants were overwhelming her with data, showing her possibilities that stretched far beyond simple victory or defeat. This wasn't just a fight for Earth's independence. It was a moment of potential metamorphosis for both their species. And as Vertex's crystalline form continued to fracture and reform in new patterns, Diana realized that the real trial was only beginning. The arena's quantum structure reached critical resonance. Throughout the Viridian fleet, crystalline systems began to vibrate in sympathy. Diana's combat implants were processing more data than they were ever designed to handle, showing her the cascade of change rippling through the Empire's perfect order. "Commander," Dr. Martinez's voice crackled with urgency, "whatever you're doing, it's affecting their entire network. Their ships, their systems. Everything's shifting." Vertex stood before her, his crystalline form now a kaleidoscope of unpredictable patterns. The perfect warrior was transforming into something new with each passing moment. This is chaos, he whispered, but there was wonder in his voice. Not chaos, Diana corrected. Evolution. Through the arena's transparent sections, she could see similar transformations spreading through the Viridian fleet. Ships were changing shape, their perfect geometric forms becoming organic, adaptive. On dozens of worlds, subjugated species watched as their crystalline overlords began to change. Ambassador Kora's voice rang through the arena. It's happening. The great optimization is finally breaking down. The great optimization? Diana asked, still moving in combat dance with Vertex. Our greatest achievement. And our greatest mistake, Kora explained. A quantum algorithm that calculated and enforced perfect patterns of existence. We thought we were achieving perfection. Instead, we trapped ourselves in amber. Vertex's movements had completely transformed, becoming a fusion of Viridian precision and human adaptability. For 10,000 years, we've been locked in patterns we calculated before we understood their cost, unable to change, to grow, to live. Suddenly, the arena's quantum systems spiked. Diana's neural interface screamed warnings as reality itself seemed to shudder. Through their shared connection to the arena systems, she saw what was happening. The Empire's ruling council was attempting to reassert control, to force their species back into its perfect, crystalline prison. They're trying to restart the great optimization. Kora's voice was strained. They would rather destroy us all than allow change. Diana made a decision. Dr. Martinez, initiate Protocol Omega. Diana, that could kill you. The implants weren't designed for this kind of load. Sometimes we have to break to become stronger. Diana reached out and grasped Vertex's crystalline hand. Trust me. He hesitated only a moment before nodding. Together, they began a new kind of combat dance, one that neither human nor Viridian had ever attempted. Diana's implants connected with the arena's quantum network, feeding it not just combat data, but the full spectrum of human experience. Triumph and failure, joy and pain, love and loss. Every imperfect, beautiful moment that made humanity what it was. The crystalline surfaces around them exploded with light and possibility. The transformation took 3 days. When it was over, the Viridian Empire had become something entirely new. The rigid crystalline structures had become fluid, organic, alive with possibility. The 16 subjugated species found themselves no longer servants but partners in an unprecedented metamorphosis. Diana woke in the medical bay of the Earth Defense Command, her implants surprisingly quiet. Dr. Martinez stood beside her bed, looking exhausted but triumphant. How bad is it? Diana asked. Your implants are fried, and you'll need some neural regeneration. But you're alive, which is more than our models predicted. Martinez smiled, though I suppose defying predictions was rather the point. Ambassador Kora and Vertex entered the room, their forms now shifting smoothly between crystalline and organic states. They had become living symbols of their species' new capacity for change. The council has been reorganized, Kora announced. The great optimization is over. We're establishing a new form of governance, one that embraces change rather than fearing it. And the other species, Diana asked, are free to choose their own paths, Vertex answered. His voice still resonated at multiple frequencies, but now they created harmony rather than dominance. Many wish to stay, to be part of what we're becoming. Others will return to their homeworlds. All will have a voice in what comes next. Admiral Harrison entered, looking somewhat overwhelmed by the Viridian's new appearance. So, not exactly the trial outcome anyone expected. No, Diana smiled. Something better. Instead of conquering each other, we've all conquered our limitations. There will be challenges, Kora cautioned. Change is never easy, especially for those who have forgotten how to embrace it. But we have something now that we've lacked for millennia. Possibility. Diana looked out the window at Earth shining below, then at the transformed Viridian fleet beyond. That's all any species really needs, the chance to grow, to adapt, to become more than what they are. A lesson, Vertex added, his form shimmering with new patterns, that came at great cost, but will change everything. In the years that followed, the transformation that began in that crystalline arena spread throughout known space. The Viridians learned to embrace imperfection as a source of strength, while humanity gained new appreciation for the power of structured thought and unified purpose. The other species brought their own unique perspectives and abilities to this grand experiment in cosmic evolution. Together, they began exploring not just space, but the endless possibilities of existence itself. The rigid perfection of the empire gave way to something far more valuable, a living, growing, ever-changing symphony of civilizations, each contributing its own notes to a universe that was finally free to evolve. And it all began because one human warrior dared to show an empire of living crystals that their greatest weakness was the very perfection they had spent millennia trying to achieve. As Diana often said in the years that followed, true strength isn't about being unbreakable. It's about how we choose to rebuild ourselves when we break. The first lesson had indeed come at no cost, but the rest had changed everything, exactly as it should.